Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. So we are once again back to Mahabharata. And before we go forward, let's review what we covered so that we're all on the same page, and then we will go forward in the story. So let me share this. Yeah. So what we saw last time was the Pandavas, they went to exile. And Yudhishthira prays to Surya Devata, who blesses him with the Akshaya Patra, which gives him unlimited food. And the food won't diminish until Draupadi has her share. Then we saw that the Pandavas met Lord Krishna and who blessed them. And we saw Arjuna did tapas, and he was blessed by Lord Shiva, who gave him the Pashupatastra. We saw also that Bhima met Hanumanji. So Arjuna met also his father Indra, remember? And then he learned all the song and dance and music, and he also got the curse from Urvashi. Then Bhima met Hanumanji, and Hanumanji promised to sit on the flag of Arjuna during the war, and that whenever Arjuna would blow his conch and Bhima would roar, Hanumanji would roar with them. And so this was the blessing of Hanumanji. Then we also saw the Ghosha Yatra, where Duryodhana, he's so eager to see what's going on with the Pandavas that he plans this pretext of wanting to examine the cows. And so he goes on this Ghosha Yatra, but what he really wants to do is to show off. And he goes there to show off, and lo and behold, because he feels like he owns everything and he wants to bathe in the river where the Gandharvas were bathing, they tell him that you can't bathe here. The Gandharvas are bathing here. And they challenge him to a fight. And he gets captured. And Karna himself runs away. And so who saves them? The Pandavas. So Pandavas actually set aside their own rivalry and they saved the Kauravas. And Duryodhana felt so humiliated after being saved by the Pandavas, after even being brought to Yudhishthira. And so originally he wanted to get rid of his life. He wanted to end his life. But, after all the Dusanga, after talking to Shakuni and Karna and Dushasan, the Dushta Chatushtaya, the four wicked folks, he decides, no, let's do more. And he does a Rajasuya Yajna, where Karna conquers everything and all the other kingdoms for him. And so this is where we were. Okay? Now, what happens next? So now what happens is a very beautiful episode, which is very tough also in this Vana Parva. So we are in Vana Parva, where they're in the forest. This visit of Durvasa Rishi. So, as if Duryodhana hasn't gotten everything already. What happens is this Durvasa Rishi, he comes to visit the Kauravas. And this Durvasa Rishi, he has anger problems. If you make him angry, that's it. Like, he will curse you. And it will be a really, really tough curse. But if you're good to him, he may give you a boon. So anyway, and this Durvasa Rishi has 10,000 disciples. So he's not like an ordinary Rishi. He has 10,000 disciples. And he goes to visit the Kauravas. And Duryodhana is just scared because this Durvasa Rishi is there. Now he has to attend to him. And Durvasa Rishi would play tricks. He would say, prepare food for us. We're going to go and, go to the river and bathe, and we'll come back and eat. Then when he would come back with his disciples, he would say, oh, we're not hungry anymore. So this Durvasa Rishi would also play tricks. Sometimes at midnight, he would wake up and he said, okay, can you please feed us? And, and Duryodhana would have to be there. So Duryodhana was on his toes the whole time to serve this Durvasa Rishi. And it was just, he was at his best. This was really Duryodhana at his best. He was actually doing tapas. But he was doing tapas because he wanted a boon from Durvasa Rishi. So he was doing so much tapas. He pleased Durvasa Rishi. He gave him everything. He saw to it that all his needs were met. Then finally, after a few days, Durvasa Rishi said, okay, Duryodhana, now I'm very pleased with you. I'm very, very pleased with you. So now I will give you a boon. Please tell me what you want. So Duryodhana says, Durvasa Rishi, it's so nice to have you visit us. And our noble brother Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandavas, it would be so nice if you would visit him too. But I want you to visit him at the time after he has eaten, after they have fed everybody, and after our beloved Draupadi has eaten. Because then they will be relaxed and they can really attend to your needs. So Durvasa Rishi said, okay, I'll do it. And Durvasa Rishi leaves, and Karna is so happy because they know about the Akshaya Patra that was given to Yudhishthira and Draupadi, that this Akshaya Patra would give them inexhaustible food until Draupadi ate. After she ate, no more food. So now the Pandavas were going to have a real tough time. Real tough time. And so this Durvasa Rishi, he finds the time when the Pandavas have eaten and when Draupadi has eaten. And he finds that time and he goes there. And he goes there and he meets Yudhishthira. And Yudhishthira says, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so pleased you're here. But, please go to the river for a bath. And when you come back, we'll arrange for food for all of your disciples. And so, Durvasa Rishi goes for bath with his disciples. And he looks at Draupadi, and Draupadi says, we just ate. We just ate. What do we do now with this Durvasa Rishi? So what does Draupadi always do? She surrenders to Lord Krishna. And it is there where she prays to Lord Krishna. She says, Krishna, Krishna, you've always saved me. You're the one who removes all the sins. You're the one who saves everyone in trouble. I only called you. I only called you. And there's such beautiful verses where she prays to Lord Krishna. And of course, Lord Krishna comes because he loves Draupadi. He loves her and he comes. And he says, Draupadi, you called me. She says, yes, yes, I called you. I really need your help. He says, wait, before you ask me anything, please feed me. I'm so hungry. She says, but wait, I have to feed this Durvasa Rishi. I don't know what to do. And my vessel is completely empty. I can't feed him. I can't even feed you. And he says, bring me your vessel. And so she brings that patra to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna looks in that patra. He looks all over the patra and he finds like one small vegetable piece, one small grain of rice, one small vegetable piece. And he looks at Draupadi. He says, there's still food. And he takes it and he eats it. When he takes it and he eats it, he says, may the whole world be full with this food. And he digests it and done. Then what happens? What happens is, Lord Krishna says, okay, tell Durvasa Rishi and their people, tell them to come. So Sahadeva goes and calls them. Now, when Sahadeva goes to call Durvasa Rishi and his disciples, they're gone. They're not there in the river anymore. What was Durvasa Rishi saying? Durvasa Rishi was thinking, as they were bathing, what happened was, as they were bathing, the minute Lord Krishna ate that grain of the vessel, the whole 10,000 of disciples of Durvasa Rishi, they felt full. They felt full to the brim that they couldn't eat anything. And Durvasa was just stunned. He said, now what do we do? We're so full and we've told the Pandavas to prepare something for us. Now, if we go there and if we don't eat, that will be a very, very rude thing. I am scared to face the tapas of Yudhishthira. I am scared to face the tapas of the Pandavas. So please see, this Durvasa Rishi who everyone's scared of, he cannot face the tapas of the Pandavas. He says, the Pandavas have done so much tapasya, I cannot face that. So he takes his disciples and they run. And they run away. And so Sahadeva comes back and he says, they're nowhere to be found. And Yudhishthira says, oh no, did we make him feel bad? Lord Krishna says, don't worry. Don't worry. They are all full. And they did not want to come here and face you and your tapasya. And so this story is again where Lord Krishna saves the Pandavas and Draupadi. It's again where Draupadi surrenders to Lord Krishna. But there's also a deeper, more beautiful meaning to this story. One is, you see, both Duryodhana and Yudhishthira did tapas. But Duryodhana's tapas was very rajasic. Even if he was very alert and he did everything that Durvasa Rishi wanted, his tapasya was only to get revenge on the Pandavas. He was doing it so he could get a boon. While Yudhishthira's tapas was out of dharma. He was doing it because it was his dharma, and he talked to Draupadi, and Draupadi prayed to Lord Krishna, and their tapas was out of dharma and out of bhakti. That is pure tapasya. So sometimes when we see people doing tapas, it doesn't always mean that it's good. What is our tapas really for? There are many people who are so disciplined in the world, who work, who do all of these things. But what is their tapas for? Is it for dharma or is it for adharma? That's the important question. Another most beautiful thing that we see from this episode is Durvasa represents all of these negative rajasic forces that come to our minds. That when you hear this prefix do, it means difficult, hard, tough. Vas means something that lives in you. So these difficult tendencies which live in our mind, like anger, like jealousy, like selfish desire, like revenge, all of that, there's so many. They're in the thousands, and they never really get satisfied. No matter how much we feed them, how much we spend time with them, how much we deal with them, they never get satisfied. We could give them so much, then they don't want it. We could not give them, then they want it. They're so erratic and unpredictable. But you see this, Bhagavan. Bhagavan is satisfied just by one thing, by purity of heart. That Bhagavan is satisfied by one thing. Our desires, our anger, our revenge, our jealousy is never satisfied. Bhagavan is satisfied by purity of heart. And the most beautiful thing is when Bhagavan is satisfied, all of these things are satisfied. The whole personality comes down. So instead of trying to satisfy all of these emotions that we have for the world, if we satisfy that purity of heart for God, even what little bit we have, that will make us full. That will make us really, really full. So this story, I mean, more and more we can really think about it, but just reflect on that thought for now. You know, how satisfying Lord Krishna is one grain of rice. Satisfying Durvasa is not easy. With Bhagavan's grace and blessings, the Pandavas come through yet another hurdle on their path. Now, is it going to get easier? No. By now, they're living in the forest, you know, some around 11 years or so. They're living in the forest. Is it going to get easier for them? No. One day, the Pandavas they all went to gather food and all of that, and Draupadi was left in the hut. Draupadi was left, and who came? Jayatratha. Jayatratha is the husband of Dushala. Dushala is that one daughter of the Kauravas, one daughter of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Jayatratha came, and Draupadi said, you know, welcome. My husbands are not here, but when they come, I'm sure they will be happy to see you, because after all, that's her brother-in-law. And she says, I hope you are doing well. And she spoke very nicely to him. He looked at her with eyes of desire, and he wanted to be with her. And she refused. She said, no way. You know, I'm already married to 5 husbands. And she said, don't come near me. Don't touch me. Don't even look at me, because you will really get into trouble. But unfortunately, he takes her. He takes her forcibly, and he rides off the chariot with her. The Yudhishthira, when he was out on his hunting, he felt that aura. He felt this negative atmosphere in the air, and he said, we must go back. He goes back, and he finds out from Draupadi's maid that Draupadi has been taken by Jayatratha. And so the Pandavas go after him. And Bhima in particular, he takes that Jayatratha and he thrashes him out. And Yudhishthira says, there's no need to kill him. He is our brother-in-law. You let him go. But, you know, Bhima is Bhima. So what he does is he takes Jayatratha's hair and he cuts it in like different ways, and he just humiliates him, lets him go. Now, meanwhile, this Jayatratha is just so upset so humiliated at the Pandavas. And what do? All these Rakshasas, when they get so upset, they do tapas. They do tapas because they want revenge. That's what Jayatratha did. He did tapas because he wanted revenge. He did tapas to Lord Shiva. And he said, give me the boon that I may defeat all of the Pandavas. And Lord Shiva said, no way. As long as Krishna and Arjuna are there, you cannot defeat them. But I will tell you, if you find them without Krishna and Arjuna, for one day, you will have that opportunity to defeat them. And this was Jayatratha. And so this was Draupadi Haran, when he had taken her away. And again, Draupadi had to go through this. And Yudhishthira was feeling really terrible that why all of this has to happen again. And so again, they sought satsanga with all of the rishis, and the rishis told him, listen, this also happened to Bhagavan Rama. And so they went into the story of Rama. Now, meanwhile, they're here in the Vana Parva. We're going to change scene a little bit to see what happens to Karna. The same year, the same time where all of this is happening to the Pandavas, there was something that was really paining Yudhishthira. What was paining Yudhishthira is that in the Rajasuya Yajna, Karna took an oath that he would kill Arjuna. And Yudhishthira heard about this. And he was really in deep, deep pain because he knew Karna's strength. I mean, we saw the tournament. He knew what Karna could do. And this, he just prayed and prayed so hard. And one of the rishis told him, don't worry, your prayers will be answered. So what happens to Karna? What happens to Karna is he has a dream. He has a dream of somebody came in his dream telling him that, listen, tomorrow someone will come to you. Indra Devata will come to you. And he will ask you for your kundala and kavacha. Kundala, earrings, kavacha, armor. He will ask you for your kundala and kavacha. And I know you have a vow, Karna, that every midday after you do your puja or worship to Surya Bhagavan, you give charity. Whichever Brahmana comes to you and asks for something, you willingly give charity. I know your habit. But when this Brahmana comes, do not give your kavacha and kundala, because this is what makes your life. This is what makes you strong. If you give this away, you will be weak and you will be easily defeated by Arjuna. And so this person comes in the dream. And Karna says, who are you? And he says, I am Surya Devata, the Devata that you worship every day. I have come to warn you. And Karna says, you know me. I am a person of my word. I have given that word that whoever asks me for anything after my prayer, I will give. And I have to stick true to my word. For me, the most important thing that matters in this world is my word and fame. I long for fame. I long to be known. And even if I die, even if I'm defeated, at least I will have fame. And at least I will be true to my word. But my word, I cannot give up. And this Surya Devata says, you must not give it. And Karna says, please forgive me, but I have to. That's what I do. And Surya Devata says, if that's the case, when Indra Bhagavan comes to you, you ask him for his Shakti. He has his Shakti that is a weapon. And this Shakti can kill thousands of people. So Karna said, okay. The next day, a Brahmana in disguise comes to Karna. Comes to beg from Karna right after his prayer. And Karna says, what can I give you, O Brahmana? Directly that Brahmana says, give me your kavacha and kundala. Karna says, can you ask something else? I can give you other things. He says, no, give me your kavacha and kundala. And Karna says, I know who you are. You are Indra Devata and you have come for this. And I will give it to you. You can take it from me. I ask you for a boon in return, that you give me your Shakti. And Indra Devata says, yes, I will give you my Shakti. But for me, it can kill thousands of people. But for you, it will kill one person. And only one person, and you can use it once. And once it's done, that Shakti will return to me. And Karna says, I only need it for one person. And that person is Arjuna. And Indra says, now Indra is Arjuna's father. Indra says, as long as Arjuna is protected by Krishna, nobody can harm him. Karna says, let's see about that. And so Karna, he, takes off his armor and his kundala, and Indra also gives him the boon that he won't have any scars or any wounds from cutting it off his body. And he says, Karna, you will be known as the generous giver because of giving up your kavacha and your kundala according to your word. And so Karna now is left with the Shakti of Indra. And so this is what happens to Karna. This was Karna Harana. This was the taking away from Karna. Now we go back into the Vana Parva of the Pandavas. So this Karna episode, you keep it in mind, on hold, and we'll come back to it later, and then we will see it. We come back to what's happening now in Vana Parva with these Pandavas. Now the Pandavas are on their 12th year of exile. So now they've seen difficulties, they've seen ups, they've seen downs. They're on their 12th year of exile. And one day they were all out in the forest, and this Brahmana comes to them and says, please help me, please help me. A deer has stolen my arani. Arani means this wood that they used to perform rituals with. They used to make fire with. Somebody has stolen my arani. This deer has come and stolen my arani. So they all go after the deer who has stolen this from the Brahmana, because they're Kshatriyas, they have to protect the Brahmanas. And they try to find this deer. They try to run after this deer, but they're not able to. They're just not able to. And this deer all of a sudden disappears. And so they're lying underneath a tree in the forest, and they're feeling so terrible that we who are blessed with prowess, how come we couldn't even save that Brahmana? It must be because we've done so many wrong things. And they all kind of talk about all these wrong things that they've done. Yudhishthira, he's regretting what he had done. Bhima says, I should have defeated that Dushasan there and then when he came to Draupadi. And this, Arjuna says, I should have defeated Karna. And Sahadeva says, I should have done something with Shakuni. And they're all filled with all of these emotions. They say, we're so unfortunate that we couldn't even save him. And they were feeling so terrible, not only terrible, but hungry, thirsty, famished, fatigued. And so Yudhishthira says, Nakula, please go and get some water for us. Find out where there's water and please get some water. So Nakula goes to this lake, and in this lake, there was this yaksha in the form of a crane. This yaksha says, this is my lake. You can only drink water after you answered my questions. But Nakula was just too thirsty. So he went to take water and he passed out. Yudhishthira was wondering why Nakula didn't come. He sent Sahadeva. He said, Nakula's not here. Sahadeva, please go and check what's happening. Sahadeva went to the lake, and the same thing happened with Sahadeva. The yaksha said, don't drink water until you answer my questions. And the Sahadeva was just so thirsty that he drank and he passed out. Now Yudhishthira was wondering, Nakula's gone, Sahadeva's gone. What now? And he says, Arjuna, he says, please go check what's happening. Arjuna goes there, and this yaksha says, you can drink water after we've talked, after you've answered my questions. Arjuna says, who do you think you are? And starts shooting arrows. Arrows, because Arjuna is like that. And finally, Arjuna says, show yourself. And this yaksha says, no. And Arjuna just drinks water, and he also passes out. Now Bhima's left. The same thing happens with Bhima. He doesn't pay attention. He just drinks the water and he also passes out. Now Yudhishthira is just aghast. He doesn't know what to do because all of his brothers are gone and he doesn't know where they are. So he finds where there's water. He finds where there's water and he sees this lake. But when he sees this lake, he sees all four of his brothers passed out. And the first thing he does is he just cries his heart out. He just cries because he says, my brothers are such strong warriors. Nobody in this world can defeat them. I don't understand how they've just passed. How have they passed? They're not alive. They're lifeless. Their bodies are all sitting here. And this Yaksha emerges to Yudhishthira. And Yudhishthira says, please tell me, who are you? Who are you that's able to defeat my brothers? This Yaksha says, I will reveal my identity, but first you must answer my questions. Yudhishthira says, okay, whatever I know, I will answer. I know I have no right to drink from your lake. This is your water. And so the Yaksha says, let's begin. This is where a beautiful section called Yaksha Prashna happens in Mahabharata. Prashna means question by this Yaksha. Yaksha means this being. And this is quite a lengthy dialogue, very beautiful dialogue that they have. Now, I've just picked some verses that we'll just see, just to get an idea of what kind of questions the Yaksha asked and what kind of answers Yudhishthira gave. Okay? So let us just see a little bit of that. Here we go. Okay. So one question asked is, what is weightier than the earth? And Yudhishthira's answer is, a mother. A mother is the weightiest in the world. What is higher than the sky? The answer is a father. A father is that which is higher than the sky. The Yaksha asks, what is speedier than the wind? He answers, the mind is speedier than the wind because it can go so fast without legs, without hands, without anything. It can go thousands of miles away, faster than even the wind. What is more numerous than grass? Think of something that's more than grass. We see so much grass outside everywhere. What's more numerous than that? He says, worries. And true how his words have so much depth in them. And as I said, at another point, we will analyze this dialogue further. What is renouncing which makes one dear? Renouncing makes one dear. And he says pride. When we renounce pride, we do become dear. Because Bhagavan, one thing that Bhagavan doesn't like is ego, pride. When we renounce that, we surrender, we become very dear. What is renouncing which doesn't lead to misery? Anger. When we renounce anger, there's definitely no misery that can enter into our lives because it's such a negative vibration. And it's such a heavy load for us to bear. And when we renounce it, there's really no misery. What is it renouncing which one becomes wealthy? This is a very beautiful one. This is desire. When we renounce desire, we truly become very wealthy. Remember this quote that I had told you before. A wealthy person is not the one who has everything, but the one who needs nothing. that person is truly wealthy, the one who needs nothing. Nandati, nandati, nandati eva. What is it renouncing? Which one becomes happy? Greed. When we renounce greed, when we know when we've had enough, we become content. But when we keep expanding and wanting more and more, we will always be empty. So, like this, Yudhishthira was asked all of these wonderful questions by Dharmaraj. Oh, who he didn't know yet, but you know. So he was asked all of these wonderful questions, and Yudhishthira answered them. And the Yaksha was so pleased with him, and said, now I grant you a boon. I grant you a boon. But before I do that, I want to ask you one question. This boon is, you can pick any of your brothers and bring them back to life. Anyone you can pick and you bring them back to life. Now Yudhishthira looks at his brothers, all 4 of them. Now you have to pick one. This is the hardest thing for us to do. You know, whenever we have to pick one out of so many, it's the hardest thing because everyone's good, everyone's worthy. And so Yudhishthira looks at the Yaksha and says, I pick Nakula. And the Yaksha says, why don't you pick Bhima? You know how strong Bhima is. He has the strength of thousands of elephants. Why don't you pick him? Or why don't you pick Arjuna? Arjuna, who nobody can defeat, who can really lead you to victory. And Yudhishthira looks at the Yaksha and says, I have 2 mothers. I have Kunti Devi and Madri Devi as my mothers. One son of Kunti Devi is alive. The other son, the son of Madri Devi, one son at least, has to also be alive because these represent my mother. We represent my mothers. And so this Yaksha said, you truly are blessed. You truly are Yudhishthira. You are staying within your dharma. And because you are staying within your dharma, I will bring all your brothers back to life. So all of his brothers come back to life and they're very happy. And Yudhishthira says, please tell me, who are you? Who are you, O Yaksha? And this Yaksha says, Yudhishthira, I am your father, Dharma. I am your father. And I came to test you. And Yudhishthira was so pleased to see his father. His father was so pleased to see Yudhishthira. He says, please ask me what else you need. And Yudhishthira said, please, whatever that Brahmin, that Arani of the Brahmin, please restore it back to him. Please make sure he doesn't lose it. And Dharmaraj said, I only was the deer who took it away. So here you go, take the Arani and bring it back to the Brahmana. And Yudhishthira asked also, he said, now we are going to enter the 13th year of our tapasya. And it's our year where Ajnatavasa, we're not to be discovered, we are to be in disguise. Please ensure that we stay in disguise and nobody discovers who we are. Because if someone discovers who we are, again, we'll have to go through the whole thing. So Dharmaraja says, Tathastu. And Yudhishthira, I can give you one more boon. Yudhishthira says, please bless me with all of the noble qualities. He says, you already have it. You will all be successful. And with that, they leave for the next chapter of their lives. They have successfully completed 12 years in Vana Parva. Now they're entering into the next stage called Virata Parva. Now, this Virata Parva is where they enter into a place. And at first, they're thinking about where they should go. And after pondering, they think about this kingdom Virata, this place Virata, where they know that the king is a good person, he's a generous person, and they know that he should take them in. Now, the question comes is, how do they go? What are their disguises? What should they be like? So, first, Yudhishthira says, I think we will have to think about it. And Arjuna looks at with sad eyes to his brother and says, you've been a king. We've worshipped you. You know, you are a king to us. You are a god to us. You are everything to us. And we can't imagine you taking orders from somebody. We can't imagine you being under somebody. And Yudhishthira says, but this is what we have to do. We all have to go under disguise. And it was so painful for them because the 12 years, at least for the most part, they could be together. It was a tough time, but they could be together, except for that time where Arjuna had gone to tapas. But at least the good amount of them were together. But now on this 13th year, they would all be apart. They would all be, apart from each other. And this was so tough for them. They were thinking how to handle it. And so Yudhishthira says, I will be like the friend to the king. My name will be Kanka. Kanka. I will be the one who will be like a friend to the king, and I will come disguised as a very, very simple Brahmana. And in the forest, Yudhishthira had learned this dice. He had learned dice in the forest. He became very skilled at it. So he said, I will, go to the king as a Brahmana and tell him I'm very good at this game of dice. And I'll tell him that I was a very good friend of Yudhishthira and that I can be with him and spend time with him and help him with whatever affairs he has in the kingdom. So they all looked at him in sadness a little bit because now their brother would be under somebody. Then, he looked at Bhima saying, but, Bhima, what about you? You're so mighty, you're so strong, like you're just, I don't know how you can even be in disguise. And Bhima said, don't worry, I'm going to be a cook. So this Bhima was Ballava. This Bhima was Ballava. He said, I'm going to be a cook because I love to eat anyway. And I can really cook really, really good food. And I know that the king has some wrestling ground there. And I can tell him I can also wrestle. So I'll volunteer and I'll make my way. So Bhima is there. And they all look at Arjuna. And looking at Arjuna, they said, now, what are you going to be? And he says, remember, I got that curse. I got that curse from Urvashi that I would be a eunuch for a year. So I'm going to be Brihannala. I'm going to be a woman Brihannala. And I have to cover my shoulders because it shows my scars and my wounds of battle. And I'll keep my hair very long and I'll teach dance and singing to all of the girls in the kingdom. I will be Brihannala. And so Arjuna said, okay. And everybody was just stunned, that everybody was taking these disguises. What about Nakula? So Nakula would be, so now we have Nakula would be Grantika. He would be the one taking care of the horses. Nakula loved horses. So he said, I will pretend to be, the horse keeper. I will ask if I can be the horse keeper, take care of horses. And this Sahadeva, they looked at him and he said, I will be Tantipala. I will take care of all the cows. This Nakula and Sahadeva, they loved being with the animals. They loved taking care of the animals. So he said, I'll do that. Now they all looked at Draupadi. She's the queen. Now what will she become? So Draupadi said, I will be Sairantri. I will be the beautician of the queen. I will be the one to make her hair, make her beautiful. I will be her beautician. And I will go in as that. And so they all looked at each other and feeling very sad, because now they would all go to this kingdom, but they couldn't hang out. They had to be all in their places. And this was the last year, and they had to see it through. They had to see it through. Otherwise, again, all of this will happen. And so before they left, there was one more thing they had to do: hide their weapons. They had such wonderful, auspicious, noble weapons that they were carrying with them, especially the benefits of all their tapasya. They couldn't take that to the kingdom, because that would blow away their disguise. So they found this shami tree, and they packed these weapons really, really nicely. And they packed it, and Yudhishthira invoked the grace and blessings of the Devatas to keep their weapons safe until after 1 year, where they would open their weapons and recover them. And the way they were looking at their weapons, parting with the weapons were their life. They were kshatriyas. And it was a very sad time for them, but they had to let it go. And they had to let it go. And one by one, they entered the kingdom of Virata. Now, first, Yudhishthira just comes into the kingdom. And this king of Virata, he looks at Yudhishthira and he says, this person looks like a king. He's dressed as a Brahmana, but he walks like a lion. He looks like a king. He looks like he demands so much respect. Who is he? And so this king actually walks up to him and says, who are you? He says, I'm Kanaka. I'm a Brahmana, and I want to be with you. I want to be with you in the kingdom. If you'll have me. I was Yudhishthira's friend, and I was advising him on many things. And now I cannot be with him, as you know, because they're all in the forest. But I need a place to stay, and I promise that I will help you in whatever way I can. And I'm also really good at the game of dice, so I can teach you. And the king said, perfect. I love dice. I love all of this. Please come. You're very noble, and it's a blessing to have someone like you. So he's in. Then we have this Bhima. And, he comes in, and he says, King, I seek employment as a cook. And the king looks at him. He says, you don't look like a cook. You don't look like a cook. You look like you're a mighty hero. You look like you're, so big, huge. You're something else. He says, yes. I wrestle too, but I'm a cook. It's my hobby. And the king says, well, in that case, you can cook, but I also want you to train my wrestlers and make them very fit and able. So he says, yeah, I can do that. He says, welcome to my kingdom. Next, Arjuna comes as Brahmanlala. Now he's dressed as this woman, and his voice is like womanly. And the king says, who are you? He says, I seek employment in teaching your daughter how to dance. Your daughter Uttara, how to dance. I'm very great at these I was trained by the Gandharvas, and I'm great at celestial dancing. And the king says, are you sure you're not a warrior? You have such broad shoulders, and your stature is so different. Are you sure you're a dancer? Are you sure you can't wield a bow? And he says, no, the only string I can wield is a veena. I don't know how to wield a bow. I don't really know all of that stuff. So anyway, Arjuna enters, and the king says, Uttara, treat her like a queen. She seems like she's a royalty. And when the king goes to his stables by his animals, he sees there Nakula by the horses, and he says, who are you? And Nakula says, I'm looking for work. And he says, but you're too handsome. You're too handsome to be here. He says, but this is what I love. I love being with horses. So the king says, okay, okay. Same thing with Sahadeva. He sees Sahadeva with the cows, and Sahadeva says, I can, make sure you get really amazing milk with your cows. I'll take care of your cows. And the king says, okay. So the king now is employing all of these people, and he's quite shocked that so many wonderful people have come to be with him. But he thinks it's a blessing. Then comes this beautiful woman that enters, and she's with rugged clothes, and remember, her hair, she vows not to tie it. Her hair is down. She comes, but she's too beautiful for anyone to look at. And so the queen of Virata, Sudeshna, looks at this lady and says, she tells her servants, please go and find out who this is. And Draupadi, disguised as Sairandri, comes to her and says, I'm looking for work. She says, how can you look for work? You're so beautiful. Yeah, I'm surprised that you're not with somebody. And she says, I am married to 5 Gandharvas, and they are in a curse right now, and therefore I can't be with them. But I am married to them, and while that time is happening, I would like to be in a place where I could work, and I can, really help decorate your hair, make flower garlands and everything. So the queen says, okay. She says, I was the handmaiden of Draupadi. I used to help Draupadi, but now I'm not able to because she's in the forest. So the queen says, you must have been treated very well by Draupadi. So please stay with me here, and I'll get, whenever you want to be alone, there are these gardens, you can go and you can just be by yourself. So she says, thank you. And so the Pandavas found a place now they could stay for 1 year without anybody knowing, or so they thought, hopefully. What happens is, this queen, she has a brother called Kichaka. And this brother Kichaka is notorious, really, really notorious. He was a commander of a huge army, and he came back, he was out fighting, etc. And he came back. And so he saw Draupadi. He saw Draupadi and he said, I want to be with Draupadi. And Sudeshna said, no, she has 5 Gandharvas, and if anybody touches her, she said that they will die. They will just die. And so the king brother Kichaka said, but I want to be with her. I really, really want to be with her. I don't know what to do. I'm just smitten by love. I need to be with her. And so Sudeshna also didn't know what to do. So anyway, he said, please somehow tell her to come to me. And Sudeshna said, I really don't know what to do. You will die. And so Sudeshna sends Draupadi to get some wine from Kichaka. And so Draupadi refuses. She doesn't want to go because she knows this Kichaka is after her. And she also told this Kichaka, if you look at me, you will die only. Don't waste your time. So he was very straight up with him. She said, if you look at me, you will die. If you come near me, you will die. But he could not help himself, and his sister could not help it. So she brought the wine and she wanted to leave. And he said, he tried to come close to her and she pushed him to the ground. She pushed him to the ground and she ran to this assembly court where Yudhishthira was there and Virat was there and Bhima was there. And this Kichaka hurt Draupadi also. And in that scene, Bhima was so upset. And this Draupadi, she looks at the king straight in the face. She says, how can you let this go on in your kingdom? How can you let people like this get away, and him looking at other people like this? And the king said, well, it didn't happen in front of me, so I cannot say. So now this king had also a cowardly side. he was a little bit of a coward because his brother-in-law Kichaka was very, very strong. He was a commander of an army. Yudhishthira was also fuming and Bhima was fuming, but Yudhishthira couldn't say anything, wouldn't say anything because he couldn't blow his cover there. And this happened at a point in time where they had stayed in this kingdom for almost a year. They had 15 days left. And so Yudhishthira could not say anything. Bhima wanted to strike at this Kichaka right away, but Yudhishthira looked at Bhima and said, don't do it. He means his eyes said, don't do it. His eyes said, everything has the right time. Everything will come at the right time. And Draupadi was really, really upset because how can they let this go again? She was really upset. And so what happened that night? So everyone left. And that night she went to visit Bhima. She went to visit Bhima and she said, Bhima, how can you let this happen again? This is too much. Bhima said, okay, what should we do? Then they plotted together. And she said, I will tell that Kichaka to meet me. And there was a dance hall. There was one dance hall they were building. And there was a bed there. And she said, I will tell Kichaka to meet me at night when no one's there in that bed. And then instead of me, you go and you defeat him. So Draupadi went to Kichaka. And she went to Kichaka and said, I couldn't be with you because it was in front of everybody. But now, at night when nobody's looking, you meet me at this dance hall and we will be together there. And so at night, this Kichaka is so excited. Meanwhile, Draupadi and Bhima go there. Draupadi is hiding behind some post and Bhima is under the blanket. This Kichaka is so excited, so excited. And when he gets there, Bhima comes out and grabs his hand. And Bhima and Kichaka get into a huge, huge fight. Now this Kichaka is very strong, very, very strong. It is known that only 4 people are able to defeat him. One of them is Bhima. So Bhima actually defeats this Kichaka. He defeats this Kichaka completely. And then he runs away from there. He goes back to his quarters pretending like nothing happened. Meanwhile, Draupadi calls everybody and says, look, my Gandharva husbands have done this to Kichaka because he tried to do something to me. And they were so upset. They asked Draupadi to leave. But she said, please, please let me stay. Now there's 13 more days. Just please let me stay. So this queen said, you're too powerful. We will let you stay. Meanwhile, these Upakichakas, these stepbrothers of Kichaka, they were so upset at Draupadi that they also wanted her to pass away. But thankfully, Bhima defeated all of them. He disguised himself on the day of cremation and he defeated all of these Upakichakas and they were gone. Now, all of this is happening. And meanwhile, Duryodhana had sent spies to find out where these Pandavas are. Because Duryodhana wants to find them before the 13th year. He's very keen to find them before the 13th year because if he finds them, again they have to go. So now the question is, does Duryodhana find them or not? That we will see next week. Okay? That'll take us. I also don't know how the time passed by so fast. I had so many stories to tell you today, but I'll tell you next week. So that is what happened. So today, things to reflect on, just this most beautiful story of how Lord Krishna is so satisfied by just a little bit, but our Rajasic mind isn't. And when we please Lord Krishna, everybody is pleased. And how Yudhishthira, was there and he waited. He answered the questions and he did whatever the Yaksha asked him to do. And therefore, he was able to get that boon. And how the Pandavas were able to let go of their weapons let go of their identities to have this 1 year of hiding. So these are some points to reflect on. Next week we will take up more. Now, for the ease of recording, I'll say the closing prayer and then we will take up questions. Okay? All right. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.